Welcome to the latest episode of the Informing Choices mini-pod. According to design futurist and social entrepreneur Trisha Mehta, beverages are having an identity crisis. They're no longer just liquids in bottles, they're interfaces, systems, rituals, and occasionally biotech experiments in disguise. Think lab-grown everything, AI-enhanced hydration, refill networks replacing retail, and psychoactive sips edging into wellness culture. That's beautifully written. I wonder who did that. So with that context, we're going to explore the future of beverages, the critical drivers of change, technological innovations, and the changing experience of consuming beverages. Trisha, a warm welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be back.
So let's start with this, and we're going to base this discussion on some research that you've undertaken again. So, from your research, what do you think are the critical drivers of change impacting upon the beverage industry?
I think I would say that to start with, the research identified four big forces that are reshaping the beverage world and actually reshaping the entire world, I would say. Starting with climate disruption, with water scarcity and crop failures accelerating, the beverage industry specifically that relies on very fragile supply chains like coffee, for example, are becoming more and more under threat. So that's driving interest now in synthetic and lab grown alternatives that don't necessarily rely on traditional agriculture. Then, of course, there's also this the nature of lab grown alternatives can only be made possible with technological acceleration, especially in AI and biotechnology, and it's affecting this industry in many different ways. So, these tools are enabling, for example, hyper personalization, scalable beverage systems. So, instead of one size fits all drinks, we're moving towards formulations that adapt to our body or the environment. AI is actually creating formulations and flavors now. Coca-Cola is a great example. And then there is regulatory restructuring. So, from sugar taxes to plastic bans, governments across the world are stepping in hard. And that's forcing brands to redesign everything from ingredients to packaging to their supply chain to their distribution models and and even the entire consumer experience. And then that sort of leads into the economic realignment that is happening. So, global inflation, localization, and logistics volatility caused by the other three disruptors are pushing brands towards decentralized production, I would say. So, think small batch, micro manufacturing, closer to consumers. And I would say that altogether, the four of these drivers are shifting beverages from being static products to entire responsive systems and experiences for their consumers.
Do you see that as running in parallel with things like lab-grown meat, with vertical farming, both of which suggest that decentralized production could certainly be something that would grow, and also a more general trend in the way that consumer retail is changing. I mean, some of the things that you spoke about there, you could apply those to just about any consumer product, from fashion to food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing manifestations of and that exchange between industries happening in many sectors, and beverage is of course a part of that entire network. So more often than not, you see retail experiences, for example, being borrowed between brands. So you might see a Chanel or a Gucci do something extremely exciting with AI or with immersive technology on their in their stores, and then next thing you know, boutique cafes are doing it as well. And I think that's the nature at which globalization coupled with technological acceleration are making these experiences and these enhanced experiences very, very accessible for a variety of consumers and very adaptable for different needs as well.
Fascinating. So we kind of outlaid some of those kind of high level drivers and started to touch on some specific technologies that we're starting to see emerge now. But if we kind of roll the clock forward to 2050, what are the further technological innovations that we might see entering the market across the next 25 years?
So from our foresight work, the tech side of beverages is, I think, incredibly rich, and most of the manifestations that we have tracked have been influenced in some or the other way with evolving technology. So I would condense it down to the 16 emerging manifestations that we tracked in our report. So we're already seeing signs of AI taste systems, like I spoke about earlier, that sort of adjust a drink's formula based on a user's biometric data. So instead of choosing from a menu, you're co creating a drink with an intelligent system for yourself exactly the way you would like it. And then there's lab grown flavor components that we just spoke about. So basically, programmable ingredients that have been made through cellular agriculture. So these are replacing vulnerable crops like citrus or vanilla, and they make beverages more sustainable and resilient. There's been a huge sort of transformation to the coffee industry because of this already. And it's especially been beneficial to brands and companies that are heavily reliant on massive supply chains and which are becoming increasingly vulnerable, like we spoke.
Mm.
So there's also things like ferment on demand pods, neural flavor feedback systems, smart refill stations in consumer experiences that can gamify hydration or remove the need for packaging entirely. So this would, of course, be in response to the ecological disruptions as well as the regulatory changes that are happening. And more radically, if we think about it, we are even seeing early signs of psychedelic or functional drinks, like beverages that are used to calm, focus, or even elevate your emotional state. Some of them are being fueled by the sober curious movement that's gaining momentum across the world, some of them because of legalization of certain substances in certain parts of the world. And these might be sort of regulated like medicines or maybe even customized by AI down the line. So I would say overall, technology is making beverages a lot more dynamic, a lot more a lot more responsive and deeply personal to its consumers.
What's fascinating to me about what you've just said is that the nature of personalization of something like a beverage. Now, we've been talking about personalization through, for example, artificial intelligence, and making sure I see adverts that I'm particularly interested in, recommending products that the AI thinks I'd be interested in. But to actually see those or hear about those technologies applied to beverage, I think that might surprise a lot of people. But it's just completely fascinating, isn't it? How these same technologies keep popping up in areas that perhaps you don't at first imagine they would.
Yeah, I agree, but I think again that's sort of the nature of radical technological
Mm.
evolution because it's happening at a much more rapid pace than any of the other three forces are sort of evolving. I mean, I give the example of connected packaging, for example. It's very common now to see QR codes on any packaging that you purchase from the supermarket, whether it's snacks, whether it's beverages, whether it's something else. But a lot of people still don't know that the reason for that QR code to be there is not just to redirect you to a website, but it's to get essential data about you, which would then be used to make very informed choices to give you better, enhanced, more personalized consumer experiences. It's a very intricate ecosystem of technologies that have been put together to in that one QR code that is eventually going to make changes to the way you consume that product for the next 20, 25 years. And that entire trajectory of the 25 years has already been mapped by the company giving you that experience. So it's really fascinating how this radically accelerating technological change is transforming every industry. And of course, beverages just being one of them.
And one of the things that struck me was potentially the difference between alcoholic and non-alcoholic. Do you see any particular difference there? And you spoke about the way we might be bringing kind of a almost a drug effect in a beverage into marketplace and the potential challenge that represents in terms of regulation. So is there any fundamental difference between alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages as an example, or do you see the same kind of drivers potentially impacting both areas of the market?
I think there's definitely a different different motivation that is
Mm.
accelerating each of them. Alcoholic, of course, is influenced a lot by sort of more ritualistic, more traditional, nostalgia, stuff like that, which sort of pull you, things that probably are now a part of your routine, because people who consume alcohol are normally people who either have been doing it for some time, they enjoy it, they are connoisseurs of the experience, or they know people who are connoisseurs of the experience and they're learning from them. In case of the sober curious moment, though, it is definitely something that is motivated from personal choice, personal agency, from this entire wave of optimizing health and tracking and being responsible for your own health, which in turn I would say might even be heavily influenced by the ecological changes happening around us. And the reason that these sort of more substance induced drinks and flavors and components, psychedelic or functional drinks that are coming into power more and more, is of course because people are looking for these new enhanced unique experiences that they might not be able to get with an average drink, so that's what gives their beverage an edge over any other thing they consume. Or they're looking for replacements for other substances that they might otherwise use but are potentially more harmful. And of course, with all of that happening, it's triggering a response from the regulatory landscape, in localized as well as in global levels. So it is a very interesting cycle of chain reaction and ripple effects that are moving through lots of different stakeholders.
And you've started to touch on kind of the experience element of consuming beverages. So how might those experiences change, do you think, into the future? Is it going to be more about beverage plus tech to create an experience rather than just the beverage itself?
I would say rather than it being centered around the technologies, I think the big shift is that drinking is becoming less about the liquid and more about the system it lives in. So, I mean, when I say this, I'm of course speaking a little bit more about the intentions and the process in which people consume beverages.
Right.
So, in our study, we framed this through the four disruptors: the lab grown ingredients, AI personalization, zero packaging refills, and psychedelic or hemp based drinks. Some of these we just spoke about. And each one is redefining the experience in which people drink. The reason I bring these four up is because at the moment, just data tells us that these are the four that are on trajectory to make most impact in various parts of the world, which is the reason we have sort of tried to foresee how each of these would influence different experience levels for consuming beverages. So, lab grown ingredients, for example, would likely change our relationship with origin. Your coffee might be brewed from synthesized compounds rather than beans. So the meaning of fresh or authentic to a consumer completely shifts. There's also the novelty value that comes in because you're now consuming something that's, created with technology in a lab rather than grown the way it has been grown for thousands of years. And that makes you feel great. Then AI personalization, for example, will make drinking extremely interactive and again personalized. So you won't be choosing a drink; you're going to generate one. It feels like it's something you're contributing to. So your body, your mood, your data all feed into the formulation, and you're almost birthing this creation that you're going to consume again. It gives you a huge sense of entitlement. Entitlement is probably not the good word, but it fills you with pride. It makes the experience very personal and very emotional as well. And then, if we talk about refill infrastructure and retail outlets, that changes the where and the how. So instead of buying a bottle, you're refilling a smart pod in a city grid. So this is a new kind of ritual. It's going to change the way you go about your purchases. It's going to change the amount of money you spend on something. It's going to change the kind of interactions you have with the brand on a repetitive, routinely basis, and one that's social as well as value driven. And with psychedelic or hemp based drinks, the act of drinking becomes ceremonial. So you're not hydrating, you're shifting your mental state or your emotional state. It's more about what the drink is doing to you rather than what your intention is to drink. So in the future, I would say drinking is no longer about just a behavior. It'll be a reflection of sort of your identity, data, your belief systems, and maybe even the functional sort of edge that you're seeking from this process, or from the time that you're investing into consuming this drink.
Trisha, that's absolutely completely fascinating, and we're going to kind of take a bit of a time out there, because in a follow-up episode we're going to be exploring beverages as a lens into future systems. So I think that's going to be completely fascinating. So, dear listeners, do look out for the follow-up episode. In the meantime, Trisha, thank you so much for your time. One quick question: how can people get hold of a copy of your report?
Well, they can find it on my LinkedIn or on my website, both of which you have links to, and I'm sure you will publish as well.
I will.
But yeah, any feedback is welcome, and very happy to get in touch with anyone who has more questions, or wants to have a conversation about it.
Trisha, once again, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes of the Informing Choices mini pod. And do let your friends and colleagues know all about the podcast.